Okay, and so the first thing we're going to land on here is how to just install the package. So you'll have to install this library dev tools, and that just allows you to install packages from GitHub. And then you put in the address, which is just EarthLab CFT, and that should install the whole thing. I have a fresh install, so when I try to do it, it just tells me that I can skip it because I have the freshest version. But if you guys do this now and you try to install it, one thing that likely will come up immediately is it will ask you if you want to update some of the package dependencies. So our tool has a lot of other R packages that we use. And so I added those as dependencies. And so you just might need to update those. So it might queue you to update a few things. And once all of your necessary packages are updated, we should be good to go. Next thing is just commonplace for R is that, so this first one we can be done with once it's all installed. We don't have to worry about that anymore until you're ready to update it at some point. But after that, every time we use the package, we are just going to use this. We're going to say library CFT, and I've asked it to list the package, the functions in this package. And as you can see, it's a pretty small package. It only has 2 functions. Both of those functions are relatively large functions of themselves, but the package overall only has 2 functions. So it's pretty easy to keep track of. If you want to see the documentation for those, which we'll do right now, we'll look at available data, and I have to adjust this a little bit. Scroll this up, and scroll this up. Go. Okay, available data. It can take 2 things. It can. It has a default setting for the web link, which I'll talk about in a second, which goes to the climate futures data. There is a separate link for the climate history data. So if you wanted that, you would need to just change the web link, and we'll do this in the code, but you'll need to change the web link to the history code instead. And what this does is it pulls up the menu of available things. Oops, sorry about moved the wrong thing. This brings up the menu of available things that you could download. Scroll back over here, and we go down. Okay, let's talk through some of those details that I was talking about. So first, I need to do a handshake with the server. So this is built into the, sorry, let me move this real quick and then I'll be done with it. Okay, this is built into the function as you saw. So you don't have to enter this, but I'm just showing you what's happening with the handshake. When I run this, R is calling up this web link, and they're doing a secure handshake to make sure that I'm friend and not foe. And then they're going to open up a connection, and that connection is going to be called SRC. So when I go down here and I look at what the server told me, first, the server told me not a file, which sounds like it would be a warning, but this is actually them congratulating you that you've given them a link instead of a file. And so that's good news, not a file. And they say the connection that you've made, attempting to make that connection, and then successfully connected. We like that. So now we have this open connection and we can go use it. So I'm going to go. This is that one function. Those are just the 2 things, one of the things you could change about it. Now I'm going to show you what the function actually looks like when we run it. So this is the available data function from CFT. What this is doing is first doing that handshake. So that's built in, so you don't have to do that yourself normally. But here we go. Trying to connect to the USGS Gov server. Boom, not a file, which is a success. Everything's a success. Then it's reading results. It's converting those into an R data table, and it's returning a data table called inputs. So let's look real quick at what inputs returned. Well, it returned us 3 things. One is the connection itself, which it looks like pretty confusing when you look at it. It just tells you how many dimensions and stuff there are. This is a raw quote from the server. but this is signifying the actual connection. So that SRC that we made before, we can use that SRC later. I'll show you that. The second one is our menu of possible data. And sorry, this is so big, we'll just scroll through this a little bit. So I'm going to scroll sideways and show you different things. So the very first column is the code representing the row, and that's what we're going to send to the server as our menu order. So if I just sent them this one code right here, what the server would return me is the specific humidity data in these units from this global climate model. Some climate models have multiple versions, so that version of that global climate model. Different scenarios. The RCP, there are two different flavors here. RCP 4.5 is climate change that isn't quite as bad as the 8.5. So the 8.5 is sort of a worse future scenario than the 4.5. And then it tells you the abbreviations in case you needed to make your own code up. But what this menu allows you to do is go through and say, okay, I like specific humidity. I like precipitation. I'm going to want that. I like maximum relative humidity. I like that. Surface downswelling shortwave flux. Don't care. Not going to do that one. Okay, so this is me thinking about what's my question, which of these do I want, and what do I want to order off the menu? So one thing you have to order is the variable. Which variable do you want? One thing you have to order is the model. There are 8 different models to choose from, and slightly different versions of each one of those models sometimes. And there are usually the worst and the less severe and more severe future scenarios. So you probably need to decide which one of those you want. Maybe your question is, how do all of those models compare against each other? So you want to go and download all of the models. Or maybe you just have a favorite climate model and you want to use that one. Or maybe there are 2 models that have been shown to work the best for your particular part of the globe, and you just want to use those 2. But it's something that you get to order off the menu. And the last thing you get to order off the menu is the scenario. So let's go look real quick at, let me not get too ahead of myself. So the 3 things, one is the connection. So we're going to use this again if we need to go ask for anything else. We'll just call on that connection again. 2 is the menu of available data. And 3 is the menu of available times. So the futures data set, which I told you is the default one that we asked for, we only asked for the futures menu. You'd have to go put the historical web link into the available data function instead to get the historical data. But to get these future data, you go to this menu and you say, okay, these were calculated in 2006, so that's the start of the futures data set. Obviously, we're in the future now, but they have an individual year code. So you're going to go find the start and end for your time period. So where do I put all of those menu items? Put them down here. So first, this is just to, well, let me tell you what we're doing real quick. We are taking those 2 menus. So we have a data menu and we have a time menu. And we just need to go through each one of those menus and say, we want this stuff and we don't want that stuff. So for the time one, we're just going to start, okay, I want to start at 72048 and I want to end at 73048. And so I just put those 2 in and it chops it up a little bit. And we get the exact same data table that was returned by the available function. We've just cut out the stuff that we didn't want. So right now we only have 6 rows. We're asking for what is it going to look like in 2099 for the week of Christmas. That's all I've done is I've pulled out these 6 rows and I've just cut everything else away. We're going to do the same thing for filtering the variables, but remember we had 3 choices to make here. With the time, we only had 1 choice to make. What is our time window? When do we start? When do we end? How many days do we include? Here, though, we have 3 choices to make. 1, variable. So which variable do I want? You can list them. Here I'm only asking for precipitation. 2 is model. Which model do you want? Here I've asked for 2 different models. And 3, which scenario do you want? And here I've asked for the more severe of the 2 scenarios. So those are my 3 menu choices. So what is this first one? This first row is the menu. So I've actually just offered the menu up as the menu. And then we're going to pipe in. This is the piping function. And then we have 3 filter functions. Each one of those is going to select the thing you asked for and leave everything else behind. So select only this variable, select only these models, select only these scenarios. And then finally, the pull function is we only need the first column because it's the code that we send. So all the menu is helping us understand what are we choosing? What does that code mean? Okay, I want precipitation, I want temperature, I want this, I want that. But now all we want out is the codes to send in our order. And so at the end of this function, if we run this, it pops out 1 code for the thing I've asked for. Now, why is there only 1? When I asked for multiple models, and the answer is probably, well, I know for sure that one of the climate models doesn't fit the criteria of having a precipitation for that day. So it's just missing precipitation for that day. So when you get NAs, they're just ignored and you're only returned the positive results. I think that was the point I wanted to get across is when you ask for these things, there may be things that you asked for that just weren't available and so you don't get those. All right, so I now know what I want to order. Here I'm asking for precipitation from the Hadley model. Hadley model is the one that had results for CRP 8.5.